Hi guys, we're going to take a quick look at what's growing in the polytunnel. My focus for the polytunnel this year was planting a lot of stuff that you traditionally may not plant in the polytunnel in order to get some early harvests in before stuff is ready outside. So we'll take a quick look now around the polytunnel and see what's growing. Hi guys, just to start off by saying this polytunnel is in its second year of production now. We used the double dig method to establish these beds in here. I'm not a fan of digging or anything, but because this is such a great growing area, I decided to go down 2 spade depths when we install this polytunnel to make the most and to aerate the soil. From here on out, we're using the no dig approach to gardening. So all these beds have been topped up with homemade compost over the winter, and we've been planting into them since then. We also laid down a mulch of wood chip as our pats, which really suppress the grass and will in turn, as it breaks down, feed the soil. So the first crop that we decided to grow this year in here was early potatoes. So I put a line of early potatoes in here back in January. We keep an eye on the weather forecast as well, as even though it's under cover, if frost comes, it'll still damage the leaves on top of the potatoes. I actually made a mistake back in February by wetting the top of the row cover that I was using when I was watering the potatoes, and there was a frost came and wilted the tops of leaves and set some of the potatoes back a bit. But they've recovered now and they look fine and healthy. Originally there was 11 strawberry plants planted in the section right at the end, and Yvonne took the runners and planted the same space, say around another 6 foot of strawberries. But as she was taking the runners, there was about 80 strawberry plants went into this small 6 foot area. So we've been taking them out and planting them around the place. Some of them are flowering already, and it's only April, so we're expecting strawberries, hopefully. You can see these are here now starting to develop already. We're expecting strawberries by the end of the month here. Another plant you wouldn't expect in the polytunnel that was put in last October is garlic. So by comparison to the garlic that's growing outside, the stems are nearly an inch thick on some of them, maybe 3/4 of an inch on most of them. So the garlic is doing absolutely fantastic in here. It's thriving. So we've got about 8 foot of garlic here. The difference between the garlic in here and the garlic outside is we space this garlic far closer together. So this garlic in here, we fed them with some seaweed dust. I also had some chicken manure pellets, which I fed them back in the start of March. So they're going quite well now at the moment. Our purple sprouting broccoli, we've been harvesting that. It's kind of coming towards the end now. We've been non-stop harvesting it. Some of it is started to go to flower, but we've still been eating the shoots, picking the florets off it here, and it's doing absolutely fantastic. The rocket here on the other end, it's absolutely beautiful to look at. Nice little cross flower on it. That's after going to seed. But as soon as the seed pods start to fill out, we'll remove the rocket. We also have bulbing onions here. We have a red variety and a yellow variety. Storon is the red variety or the yellow variety, and I can't remember the name of the red variety, but we're pretty excited again to have early onions growing in here. Again, spinach, very productive inside the polytunnel. We've been picking that like mad. And it's as soon as we pick the leaves, we come back the next day and early and it's back to where it was. It's just starting to bolt now. Some of the plants we've removed as they're bolting, and we'll sow some more outside. We've lots of spring onions as well growing here in the polytunnel. They do really well. These were put in, I think they were put in about a week and a half ago, and they're doing absolutely fantastic already. It kind of just shocks me when you move stuff from module trays into the ground, the speed at which they start to grow. So they look like they're going really slow in the module trays. You put in the likes of this rocket now, which only had 2 leaves and its cadendals when we put it in a week ago. Now it has nearly 8 leaves, and it's doing absolutely fantastic. It looks lovely and healthy. It'll be ready to be harvested. The outer leaves can be picked off next week. Same goes for these pak choys. They're only in the soil a week, and they're looking like you could be picking off these outer leaves already from them. Here now on the right, it's just some mini turnips. So we have 2 or 3 different varieties, purple top Milan, snowball, and there's another variety as well that I can't remember. In the next bed, we have some different varieties of carrots growing in here. Carrots can be tricky enough in the polytunnel, so they need to be kept moist, the soil, especially when they're germinating. So a good trick that I found is, if you can see, when we make the rows, we put some potting compost into the rows and compress it a little bit and sow the seeds into that. We also kept plastic over this bed while the carrots were germinating. That just keeps the moisture locked in and helps them to germinate. So we had a lot of dry weather here now, nearly a month without rain, which is very unusual for Ireland. And some of the carrots, like here now, they're kind of quite sparse. Should be only 2 inches max between the carrots. Some of them dried out and failed to germinate. So when I was sowing the carrots as well, I tried my best to sow them at 2-inch spacing to avoid having to come back and tin the carrots by hand. This creates a lot of problems, tinning the carrots, because as you tin the carrots, you can attract the carrot root fly as well, because it'll be such a strong smell even from the tinnings. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of counter that as well. It's not as much of an issue in this covered microclimate here inside the polytunnel, but outside it can be a major issue, and it's still early yet for the carrot root fly, so hoping we'll get some nice carrots. We have a few carrots as well on the right here, which are doing quite well. They were planted over winter, and now they're just starting to bush up, and they'll be developing quite fast. So we're hoping to be harvesting them in another month or so. These are just the remains here of some turnips that grew last year. I'm quite slow to take plants out of the soil, as by leaving them in the soil, you're keeping life living in the soil. They're photosynthesizing, they're feeding the microbes in the soil. So when I'm ready to put a crop in, I'll take these crop out, as long as they don't go to seed and start dropping seed, because that again raises a whole lot of problems in itself. So here at the end of the bed as well, we've got some chives and some cutting leaf celery. We also planted some nigella, which is it's kind of hard to differentiate between the carrot and the nigella, but this one here on the left is nigella, or love in the mist, just to give us some colour and to attract some pollinators into the polytunnel. Some more spring onions that were planted, and just some more turnips then going to seed. Here as well are some parsnips that didn't do great last year, but we just left them in the soil, and maybe by just giving them a little bit more time we might get another couple of parsnips. There's only a handful here, but another thing to think about as well in the garden, and this isn't just related to the polytunnel, but volunteer plants. It's important to be able to identify your volunteer plants. Like these all here now are Queen's Anne marigolds. So we planted them last year, they went to seed, and obviously they've dropped a lot of seed in the polytunnel. And rather than just weed these out now and pull them out, as I don't have seeds for them still, I'll pick them out and I'll put them into pots and they can be planted on again, back in the polytunnel or around the garden. Same, there was lots of borage in here, volunteer borage. There was lots of volunteer tomato plants. So we've just pulled all them out and we've repotted them. We got some perennial rocket as well. So it's good when you're weeding to know what's weed per se and what can be used again. It'll just stop you from having to sow seed. So we have a few ornamentals now waiting for the frost to pass. In the next few days they'll be planted out as well. Two other additions that we've put into the polytunnel. We have a peach here and a nectarine, which we're going to prune to keep nice and small, and hopefully we'll get some nice soft fruit from these this year, but definitely hopefully next year. I think they're 4-year-old trees as well. So just some of the stuff now that's growing and germinating. So these are some of the marigolds that we pulled out from the soil. We just popped them into a tray. Some borages as well that we pulled out. Just some other plants then that we're growing. We also have a eucalyptus here that we planted into the ground. Quite a beautiful plant, a lovely aroma from it. So we have our tomatoes here now growing quite well. Just letting them grow before we put them in May. We also have around 80 cabbages in this section here that are just getting ready to go outside into the ground in the beds. So I absolutely love the polytunnel. It's by far my favourite growing space. This time of the year especially, it's around 8 degrees out, but in here it feels like maybe 20 degrees. It takes a lot more work, so there's a lot more work in watering and maintaining it, but it's such a productive space. I'm actually still shocked at the growth of some of the salads once they hit the ground. Same with the spring onions. Once they go in, they just seem to shoot up. So thanks now guys for watching our video about our polytunnel. Have a great day and happy gardening.